Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the Gilbert family, Pat, Christine, and Allison, and all the friends coming in from all over for facilitating this celebration of life of our dear friend, Dan Gilbert. My name's Jake. I don't know everyone here, but I have heard a lot about all of y'all, and I did know Dan very well and miss him dearly. Gilbert curated everything he was involved in. He had genuine creative vision and was always interested in building a skill base for whatever project was on his plate. There have been countless times when discussing how to get something done that at least part of your solution was to plainly ask Gilbert. And if you did get the chance to ask Gilbert, he would listen deeply and offer not only his vast knowledge and experience on said subject, but he would ask the right questions and try to encourage you to go for it. Dan encouraged so many folks to pursue their passions and had so many creative pursuits himself simultaneously. And yet it wasn't all pounding on drums, carefully editing during music production sessions with groups of all ilks, mastering the screen printing craft, or shepherding the creative souls he so influenced. There was Dan, the dude, Gilby, Gilbone, Don Gilbert, the big homie, the observant social magician who mastered wit and timing to aid his humorous approach to most situations. Looking back on the time we spent together, let's all take a moment to remember a specific glance he gave you from across a circle, or a specific take he had on a movie from the 90s, or some weird joke he was telling you on the porch, or the time he made you spit laughing by simply waiting for the exact proper moment to share with you a harsh critique hidden behind a bespectacled soft grin. Oh, the takes he had, the jokes he told, plenty of which had a set and setting in the present moment which they existed, each one a carefully curated extension of the gifts our friend shared with the world he was so immersed in constantly. Those are the memories that come to mind most often, and not the very real, concealed struggle with depression and addiction that he battled valiantly at times. He did open up about parts of his struggles over time, as one does, trying to figure out how to get something done. The last time I saw him outside of our house, he told me plainly he wasn't doing well, but then we joked around for a minute, because it's possible to face any of the darkness we feel and still be filled with light, and be grateful to have crossed paths with such a kind soul. Gilbert was old school, with quiet wisdom in spades, a foundation character in so many of our lives. He made us burst into laughter as many times as he helped broaden our perspective on issues mundane and monumental. And those were many. Today, we celebrate and memorialize the life and times of Dan Gilbert, the Duke of Doodling, Wizard of Denver DIY, path opener for the creative souls, preciously, charmingly playing it cool, lord of drums, bastion of butcher's block, keeper of tools, collector of knowledge, the anti-authority of the sound arts, the arbitrary absurdist, enchanter of crucial spots, past and present, and so much more. We fucking miss you, Gilbert. And now I'd like to turn it over to a few speakers who Dan knew dearly to say a few words. And throughout the process, we'll also share anecdotes that you wrote down and put in that jar. Feel free to continue to add to it. We have food and beverages available. A special thanks to all the people, known and unknown to myself, who have worked together to make this memorial possible. Keep showing up for each other. You know who you are, and I can't thank you enough for pulling together to make this all happen for Gilbert. Please be supportive of each other beyond this event. We're all here because we love and miss Dan so much. Tiger Baby, if you want to come up here and share your story, that would be awesome. Get me off this stage.
You're too tall. I don't have like a didactic. I just want to share some memories. I don't know how I know Dan Gilbert. I don't remember meeting Dan Gilbert. I didn't know him. And then we were walking home and I was sleeping on the couch at Stout House. Just like out of nowhere, he was a pillar in my life. One day, I can't, and just like Stout House was where he was living when there was still the half pipe in the living room. And I remember just like, he would just let on little things about himself. We were hanging out on the front porch, smoking cigarettes, me, Galansky, and Gilbert, and they were talking about how they just had band practice. It's like, oh, what band? They're like, sort of like, don't talk about this too much. We don't know if it's even going to be anything. But it's us two and Max and Matt. Matt Best? They're like, yeah. What is he playing? Drums. It's like, Dan, what are you playing? I'm playing bass. You know how to play bass? Nope. Fuck, man. And it's just, he just always made you feel comfortable. There was nothing awkward. Anytime you saw him anywhere, you were so excited. You'd be at a show at the Outpost, like, is Gilbert coming? If Gilbert's not here, I gotta I'm out. And just like, I lived across the hall from him on 29th, and just like leaving my door open to listen to him fuck around on his guitar. It was just so nice. Coming home to him blasting. You couldn't have a conversation blasting Follow the Leader. Why, dude? We went to Tiger's Jaw together, sold out show at the Marquee. Dan and I were 2 of 6 people old enough to go to the bar. And it was, I think about that all the time, like being out front, looking at these children. I don't know, but I won't go on too long. Tiger's Jaw. What about your friends? They do make me happy. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you all.
Frankie, if you could come up here and share a poem for us or 2, really appreciate that.
Hi. Before I share, I'm going to make it through. I just wanted to say that Dan was the most stable person in my life the last 8 years. And I think we always knew that we were supposed to be in each other's lives, and we always found a way to make that happen. And I loved him and he loved me, and what a great gift that was, and that all of us have who he loved. And he made my life so much better every single day. So I wanted to read a poem that felt really fitting, and I once sent to Dan when I was living far away, by John Porcellino, which I'm hopefully pronouncing his last name correct. I was supposed to look it up before and I forgot. It's called Ruby Hill. Lying on grass with you on Ruby Hill, with Denver spread below. The sky was up, the earth was down, the last thing of which I was ever certain. Okay. All right, and then this is a poem I wrote. Sorry, I need to blow my nose. Okay. This time, returning to Denver, you were not there to pick me up from the airport, guessing which side of the escalators I would come out of. You, with your hands in your pockets, your soft chuckle and sigh as we hold each other there. Laying in your bed in the dark, as my father was dying, I would wake up crying, you holding me saying, I got you, I got you. Talking in your bed, the last time, I told you I couldn't lose you, and you said, I'm not going anywhere. At Riverside, this afternoon, I find the perfect smallest cottonwood star at the same spot, and I scream into the swampy grass and thistle and plains. My body heaves, and I lean down to breathe. The smell of old wood and dust and dried up creek, rotten and sweet. I watch birds catch their wings on the light of the setting sun, and I stand there in the light, in your light, knowing you are safe. Thank you.
Max Boyd, if you want to come up. And after that, if Dre or me, will probably read a couple of these written anecdotes.
Hey, my name is Max. I used to live here. I lived with Dan for several years, and we played in a few bands together. First off, I think Dan would be mortified to know that a bunch of people are gathering here today to talk about him. And he'd be even more freaked out to know that some of us have been listening to his old bands on repeat. And he'd probably apologize for making anyone sit through that. When I was first asked, Jake asked me to speak here, and I spent a lot of time trying to write something really deep and profound, something that would truly touch everyone and fully explain who he was to me and to all of us. But that's impossible, so I'm just going to share a few small things about him that always really stuck with me. Because mostly after years together, my best memories of him are just countless plain, mundane moments, sitting on the porch together, recording music in the basement, watching crappy 90s movies, going and eating way too many wings together, and see who can handle the hottest sauce. One of my favorite traits of Dan was when he would get excited or nervous or have an idea that required a lot of in-depth explanation. He would rub his two fingers against his palm. Y'all remember that? I think about that a lot. And he told me once that it was he was rolling all the dead skin and the dirt into little balls, and he would pick it. He taught me a lot about songwriting and recording. He made me unafraid to fully enjoy a top 40 pop song and showed me how to absorb those songs into my own music and trick everyone into thinking we just wrote a punk song. We were on a quest together, and we were mining for pop gold. That was the main driving factor in a lot of the music we were recording later. Here's some of my favorite lyrics that truly represent the mad genius of Dan Gilbert. One was a haiku that he wrote when he was working at Europa. Table of my life. Across from me sits no one. Lonely busboy fuck. That one hit so hard when he told me that one. Another one was in another band we were playing in. And originally he had written the lyrics to be, all I see are know-it-all machos and homophobes. Just talking about like kind of being out in the world we were in. But he had this stroke of genius and he changed it to all I see are know-it-all macho I don't know-a-phobes. And that was like, to him it meant like people who were afraid to like admit that they don't know something. And he was pretty stoked about that. And then this one has kind of become like my mantra if like I'm having a super hard work day or just a shitty day or something. But who shit the dream I'm living in was awesome. It had originally been who shit the pants I'm looking in, but he switched it up. And this is like a deep cut for some people who know, but out of context it might not seem that profound, but to slide this into a punk song was like truly the work of the mad genius, and it's this world be crumbling, yo. That one had me laughing my ass off when he said that. Dan loved dogs. He especially loved a good, bad dog. And I always encouraged him to get a dog. One time he told me one of the biggest reasons he never got one was he was afraid it wouldn't love him back. And that always just really touched me. But a cool dog story. One time, me and my partner at the time, we were watching our friend's super tiny Pomeranian, Rohan, yeah. And me and Ellie went out to like get breakfast or something, and Dan said he'd watch the dog for a little bit, and we came back and he had done like a little photo shoot with it. And he'd taken all these pictures to make it look extra small. Like he put it at the top of the stairs and took a picture from the down below, and it was awesome. But I love Dan so much, and I'm sad to see him go. And I'm going to attempt to perform some sort of emotional alchemy and turn this dark, nasty shit into gold, and to let this serve as a reminder to check in on our loved ones and do everything we can to help each other.
I don't think I'll name people. And Dre, do you want to read any of this stuff? Actually, yeah, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, this is very tall. Hey everyone, can you hear me? Okay, so this one says, I had just moved to Denver and went to a house show. I was very out of my comfort zone. Dan knew everyone there and could have easily ignored me. Instead, he stuck by me until I felt confident enough to explore on my own. It was a simple gesture, but one I will never forget. Miss you, dude. You were one of the good ones. Oh, it's really nice. That one's a little longer. I'm going to wait on that one. Dan was so true and so humble. I remember meeting him in the apocalyptic Christ days, hanging out at the Golanskis when I was just a youngster. Dan and Dan were the cool older guys, bestowing their punk and metal knowledge on our very impressionable young minds. Later in life, I was always happy to see Dan out in the wild, and he would always make a point to catch up, even just briefly. Dan was a great man, and I feel fortunate to have known him. Okay, this one says, I remember Dan hugging, kissing, and generally creeping out Otto the dog. Will forever be my favorite memory of Dan. We will miss you, buddy. You're the best. He did be doing that. This is... My favorite thing about Dan was his smile. He was always so kind. I felt at ease when I saw him. His love for people and animals was always apparent, If there was a dog in the room, Dan would swoop it up and hold him on his lap. All the dogs loved Dan. I'm just so thankful to have crossed paths with him. I wish I could get one more hug. Such a kind, funny, gentle soul. Love you, buddy. I met Dan 18 years ago, growing up in the same silly suburb, and then into the Denver scene. Dan was always kind and thoughtful, never an elitist. He was always someone you could just crew up with when you didn't know anyone at the show, because Dan was friends with everyone. Dan was always down for bike rides along the Platte to the old train bridge and past the outposts on summer nights. He always had smart, funny jokes, but never a mean word about anyone. Dan was always proud of being from Denver. No coast, mid nothing. And Denver feels emptier without him. Okay, let's see this. Should I read more? Yeah, that's good. I got more.
Taylor, will you come talk, please?
Hi. I didn't actually prepare anything to say because I was just kind of hoping that this wasn't real. Dan was one of my very best friends and one of the funniest people I've ever met. But probably my favorite thing about Dan was that he never judged anybody. And so, I just hope that we can take that feeling forward for him. And I love him very much. Thank you.
Rachel? Rachel doesn't want to talk.
Do you want to read something from out?
Kevin Hennessy, do you want to talk?
Keep it pretty short. Jake read it from the get-go. Rooster Jake said a lot of how I feel. He's cool hand Dan. So cool. And he didn't ever get any credit or won it. No cool points. He didn't participate in that. I was like 20 years ago, I think I met him in front of the Climax Lounge, I think. He looked exactly like that. Mostly, he was like everybody's saying, he was the go-to guy, whether it was like to pay rent or he showed me how to fix the dryer or negotiate rent, you know, because the house, we fixed the dryer with a bottle cap. He showed me how to do that. He would record, you know, every band I love, my favorite bands. He played in most of them too, and can't remember if he's actually from here, born and raised, Montana, yeah, and has roots in Texas and everything, right? And so, but at the same time, like, he was more local than me. He knew the river spot. Exactly, he was punk when he got here, and like, I still would be like, where should we go eat all the time? And even when I was being reckless and whether it's just coming in the back door at the restaurant he worked at and telling, you know, demanding some food for some reason or doing something obnoxious, he was like real cool about, you know, being like, hey, maybe you should be a little more considerate sometimes. And I didn't think this was going to be that funny. I guess he's a funny guy. But he's such a resource for all the knowledge and the patience and pillar and all. And I'm really going to miss him. And thanks everyone here for receiving him, making art, and pursuing things that he wouldn't have, or you might not have had done if you hadn't had him to like do a lot of it for you. So that's it.
Alex Fiedler.
I'm going to try to blast through this. I realized that I could just keep writing about Dan forever. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Alex. Thanks to Jake and Dre and Glansky and everyone that asked me to talk today. I can say with confidence that Dan changed my life when it comes to creating, talking about, and performing music. I met Gilbert through my older brother, Anthony, at an Apocalyptic Christ show. I remember him saying, "You're about to see the best grindcore drummer in Denver." He lived up to the fucking hype. Over the next 10 years, he went from being this older punk that was like, you know, in a different generation than me to being someone that I considered a very close friend and yeah, someone that I developed a deep level of creative trust with. Over the last month, I've been just finding this desperate urge, even right now, just to paint this extremely intricate and detailed picture of Dan, of our friendship together, and to include every inside joke, every opinion that he had about music and movies, every minute of every band practice that we had together, and every late night closing up Europa together, just blasting music over the speakers to show each other. And I don't know, but I guess I've just been coming to this realization that the relationship that you have with another person is reserved solely between the two of you. It's a private, nearly indescribable bond. Others can witness it and participate in it, but the times that you spend together are uniquely yours. My friendship with Dan will only ever be able to be fully understood by the two of us, and now by me alone. I think that we're probably all experiencing this right now. You know, we find commonality and we find comfort in even saying the word Gilbert. It just reminds us of the most laid-back, knowledgeable, hilarious, and kind, just deeply, deeply kind person that any of us have ever known. But at the same time, I feel this deep yearning to really describe how I knew him, you know, like how you knew him. And it's just this desire to conjure and just bring to life every memory that I have of him. And I don't know, I guess that we'll never be able to fully paint that picture, but I think that maybe this is how legacy works. It's not contained in the countless number of songs and albums that Dan played on or recorded, but it'll live on in the profound impact that he made on each of our lives. A treasured gift of existence that we all have the responsibility to carry with us forever. It's impossible to have met somebody as singular and as special as Dan and to not have been forever transformed because of it. The gift that I received from Gilbert was the gift of patience and an aspiration to create without ego. I think of Dan as having this supernatural ability to approach music with an extremely grounded mentality and an artist who wanted everything other than the spotlight, a rare quality in musicians, I think. I've only ever learned patience through the demonstration of other people, and no one exemplified it more than Gilbert. Without a second thought, Dan would lend you countless hours finicking away at some recording or a song or a guitar part or drum fill or fucking anything, and you both were just, until you were just both totally satisfied with the final result. a complete pro who was incapable of being full of himself, even though he had every fucking right to be. We all know Dan's drumming, my favorite drummer to watch or that I've ever played with. It was indicative to who he was as a person. He would do anything to benefit the song, not himself. A steady, reliable foundation, the backbone to the music, with these hidden flourishes of unbridled talent and almost secret talent that you'd have to be really paying attention to see or hear, and all executed perfectly while he pushed up his glasses as they slid to the bridge of his nose, somehow never missing a beat. I remember just looking to Dan in any moments of creative confusion, and because of this trust that he was able to cultivate effortlessly, and he had no motive of his own outside uplifting the creative visions of others. He fine-tuned his skills in drumming and recording as a way to help others fully manifest their dreams. It was a beautiful calling, and he responded with absolute humility. He showed me what it meant to collaborate without ego, and I'm left forever inspired by it. Lastly, I think it feels important to say today to everyone here that just reach out and ask for help. It's never too late. You're not stuck on a singular track with no way off, no matter how much it may feel like it. You can always redirect and recenter your life with the help of others. The world fucking sucks. I don't know why I'm saying fuck so much. And it can feel harder and harder to have hope at times, so reach out and offer help. Reach out and ask for help. Don't wait until it's too late to tell your friends how much they mean to you. All we have is each other. Dan, I love you so much, man. I can't believe this is real. I wish I could have told you how much you meant to me, how I loved you like a brother. I took for granted all the help you gave to me, and I hope there's some way I can communicate to you how grateful I am for everything you did. I wouldn't be who I am today without you. Any song I write will be dedicated to you. I hope your spirit has found some peace. I'm going to miss you so fucking much, Gilbert. Thank you.
If there is anyone who does want to speak who wasn't able to reach out, thanks, Mandy.
Hey, I'm Mandy. I'm just going to tell some stories. I thought of a lot. I guess this time Dan took me to the airport, and I knew I was going to miss that flight. I was in the airport. I was going to miss it. He's texting me, okay, I can just go wait at Taco Bell and pick you back up. I'm like, yeah, do that. So he comes, picks me back up. It's like 10 p.m. We go to Safeway and buy so much food, like so much more than we could ever eat that night. But we wanted options. And then he woke up at 4 a.m. to drive me back to the airport for my rescheduled flight. Speaking of the airport, once him and Max Boyd picked me up, and we were all about comfort, we were going, it wasn't a phase. They took me, we went straight to Walmart or Target or somewhere like that and all bought sweatpants. Like, that was gonna be my trip to Denver. We're like, all right, let's set the stage here. Once we were at Riverside, and Dan and I really had being haters in common, and I loved that about him. And we were annoyed at our friends, and it was still fun. It was just, So at the very end of the night, I'm like, Dan, you're gonna go on the Ferris wheel with me, and it's gonna be cute. God damn it, we're gonna snuggle, and we're gonna go on the Ferris wheel. So we went on the Ferris wheel, and it's just so funny when something, is kind of embarrassing him, and you just make him do it anyway. Something I just thought of when I was walking here that I always really loved is the whole no high fives to bullshit murmurs. Here's the feelings. Fuck 'em. Dan's like, I don't agree with that. I don't like that. Feelings are all we have. Somebody had to take a stand on that one. Love him forever. And just a song lyric we always said to each other was, I love you just as much as I hate the man. So, should I read some of these, or I'll see if other people want to talk? I can read some of these too. All through high school, the two Dans would play music in my parents' basement. Watching Gilbert play drums, often on my childhood kit, would shatter my 12-year-old mind. His playing was so fast, so intense, yet hit every sound clean, controlled, and even. Plus, he was like 16 and would play real gigs with a band called Clusterfucks. What a legend. As we grew up, Dan would always treat me like a peer, not someone's little brother. But in my head, he never stopped being that legend from my neighborhood. Thanks for the inspiration and coolness and musical excellence. Little Golansky. Gilby, you are still one of the most important loves of my life, and you always will be. Thank you for your forgiveness even when I didn't deserve it. You taught me how to love. I have a room in my heart with a candle burning at an altar for you, and I'll tend to it for the rest of my days. I pray that I'm able to tend to your stories and legacy in a way that honors you and everything you did for us. Harmony and Reptar. And then I think there's just one more. I have many memories of Dan Gilbert, all of them just purely great and warm and fun and lovely. One of the last times I hung out with Gilbert was impromptu. I went over to the house where he was living to pick up a lamp from another person who lived there, and Gilbert was home, and we ended up sitting and talking together for what must have been an hour or more. I lost track of time. He was telling me a story about something that had just happened to him, and it was such an outlandish, random, hilarious sequence of events. I remember being blown away that what he was recounting had just happened, and was marveling at how Dan ended up in what seemed like the scenario out of a movie. As always, he was the best storyteller, one I hope to try and live up to in my own life. I loved every minute. Eventually I left after a while of opening up that unexpected but perfect little portal of chatting and connecting, of celebrating what it is to be human without even realizing it in the moment. Every time I got to interact with Dan Gilbert, it felt meaningful and present, and he was always deeply kind. I'm grateful to have known such an incredible person.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say over a microphone? You are more than welcome to share.
Can I just say, I love the way he would do the half yawn when he was talking. You guys remember that? He'd be doing this, and then he'd go all the time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Dre, you have a couple more written things to read? Okay, that's it, all of them. So Dan Golansky, you want to come up here and share, please?
Hello, everyone. My brother, my mom. I have this quirk that I developed over the pandemic, which is I refuse to grieve in discomfort, so that is why I am dressed with my hood up. And so. Oh yeah, these are my grieving Crocs. Gilbology, a burgeoning study that strives to determine the shape of a life created upon the sudden and surreal discovery that a particular Dan Gilbert and/or Don Goblet has become strangely and uncharacteristically unpresent in space and time, aka all the ways I think I'm going to miss you so fucking much. Gilbone. I spent weeks in my head having imaginary conversations with an imaginary you about this no longer imaginary eulogy of sorts. How can I sum up, let alone do any justice to, a relationship that has lasted 2 decades? Sometimes we were brothers, sometimes best friends, sometimes mirror opposite good and evil twins, the jester and the wizard. You are at times a mentor and master of seemingly every craft that exists. You're always the most silent student in the world. The mechanics of our minds are best displayed in the recollection of events, places, and for you, every room we've ever played. My recollections are always informed by a cloudy interpretation of the social dynamics present, and perhaps the substances consumed. Yours were an impartial recollection of the specificities of every piece of furniture in the room, the layout of the building, including rooms I didn't even visit, and perhaps we weren't invited to visit. Who was present, who was absent, the brand of the sound system, the numbers of urinals and stalls in the bathroom. Then, if given the time, you would lean into all the ways the design could be improved. The truth is, as I go through memories, wading through blurry half-truths, I'm still expecting you to burst out of the woodwork with forefinger pointed in the air, obnoxiously correcting me on some small detail or other. Next to you, it's like my brain always has cotton mouth. That's seriously what it feels like. I'll never think of a better way to say that. Now, picture me donning a pair of shattered memory goggles. These imaginary goggles are magical and help one recall past punk friendships. The year is 2002. You ran into Matt Schmidt in a rat-infested alley. Empty 40s strewn about, alongside remnants of lives lived in the dark shadows of Littleton. Perhaps a dirty blanket sitting next to an abandoned diaper, though this particular diaper wasn't yet soiled. But that's a story for another time. If my imaginary punk goggles are serving me, Matt had a giant safety pin pushed through his skull, and his t-shirt wrapped the band, "Fuck Sucker." You were certainly wearing a Minor Threat t-shirt. While a far cry from the origins of punk rock, there was still the law of the land. Punks who are indeed punk heretofore shall always kick it. Thus, we never had a choice. I had a few years of guitar under my belt at that point, and when I heard you play drums, well, refer to the aforementioned law of the land. At first, we were recording spazzed out rants and covers in my parents' basement. I hardly even hear drums on the KPE the early years recording you still had as of a week ago. In retrospect, KPE, or Crack Pipe Explosion, was perhaps too hard a flex for 3 high schoolers who had just barely discovered marijuana. In that same pathetic way that Christopher Columbus discovered India. Thankfully, this embarrassment never went public, as one day, walking home from Taste of Philly, Matt suggested we rename the band Apocalyptic Christ. Now it's Christmas Hanukkah 2002. The Golansky family has purchased a carefully researched, Dan Gilbert approved Tascam 4-track cassette recorder. This was the year that we started our tradition of you coming to visit every Christmas day. Before nightfall, we had drilled a hole through the wall of my parents' basement to create an isolation booth for the recording equipment, something I didn't understand. But by the way, you were fondling the potentiometers and faders of our new recording equipment. Side note, this is perhaps the first time I ever saw Gilbert displaying behavior that could only be described as erotic. I figured your lust for aesthetics surely extended to a deep knowledge of why we couldn't be in the same room as the instruments. The goggles take us to 2003, our first time at Garageland, a warehouse venue off of 28th and Walnut. Always supportive of our creative endeavors. Surely your mom or Tony's dad dropped us off. Clusterfucks are playing with Divine Intervention, a Slayer cover band. Without a backstage, our heroes had to converse with us between sets. Brothers Josh and Justin genuinely interested in us. Justin was a particularly standout influence. In a time and place when 40s and overt displays of male aggression were the norm, he identified as a feminist, sported a Kiss back patch, unapologetically imbibed in marijuana, and shamelessly listened to classic rock and psychedelic music. He was our first example of what a hippie punk might look like, and we were sold. It wasn't long before we were playing our first show, a Halloween set with Clusterfucks and Uncouth Youth. Not only did Clusterfucks lend us equipment, I was blasting out of a full stack for God's sakes. But after our set, they invited us to record an album with them that they would be funding. Over the next few years, our friendships deepened. You, likely still in high school, were playing drums with these men, covered in tattoos. Okay, side quest. Pencils down, goggles off. My imaginary uncle works for Sony, and we have the prototype for PlayStation 3 at my parents' house. Sony really needs our feedback on this futuristic dream machine, and the only way we can provide it is if you sleep over at my parents' house. No, it can't happen any other night. Yes, that's Sony. In our defense, my brother had recently gotten an Xbox Live set up, and we did love to chat with kids from China or Switzerland in between bouts of Halo, annoying them with our persistent and obnoxious demands to tell us what tomorrow might bring, being time zones ahead. End of side quest. Back to Goggle Vision. I'm thinking of how protective you are of your mom, and rightfully so. She's where you get your softness and endless curiosity. Beautiful traits that you have to guard by building a shell around yourself and your family. A week after you died, I'm crying with your mom on the phone, tears quickly shifting to laughter as she recounts to me the time we were driven by both your parents to see Guar in Fort Collins. That I will always remember. What I forgot was that the night we were being sprayed with human blood and alien semen, while George W. Bush is crucified on stage and masturbated upon the audience by the slaves of Guar. Your parents were enjoying their anniversary, eating sushi in what I'm assuming was a much more tasteful environment. After all this, the venue opening to the streets, the audience pouring out, covered in fluids, faces black from the smearing of the ink, steam rising off their bodies. Your parents were contentedly waiting in their Honda SUV, smiles spread to their eyes. As we crawl in the car, your mom turns around and says, "Now, who wants Taco Bell?" Fast forward some years, you've graduated from a sound engineering program with real skills, have your own home studio. You're a name about town, for better or worse. You've released a number of albums on vinyl, living your child's wildest dreams. Patient and persistent, possessing an undeniable pop sensibility. In your view, projects take as long as they need. Over our years together, that quality often felt stifling to my creativity. The wild antics I want to get into were always feeling reeled in. I'm impulsive and impatient by nature, but you always keep me grounded when I want to self-destruct. All this is to say that I'm deeply in love with you. You possess character traits of protectiveness, of unconditional love, and endless curiosity about your friends' passions. I found the Holy, Holy, Holy CD in your room, an embarrassing artifact of post-college life, an anarchist cult, a full-length audio document of hippiedom that was recorded and mastered in 11 hours. Needless to say, it's unlistenable. But you kept that, just because I was involved. All said, I'm almost angry that Gilbology as a concept has to be created. Its mere existence suggesting that no one's quite sure where you are at present. It's making me feel awkward about addressing you in the present tense. The concept of a eulogy feels wrong, and I almost want to apologize for any lapses of memory or misrememorys, as we always like to say. Okay, maybe that's not a thing, but I think we should call them that from now on. Just you and me, though. No one else gets to say it. It's our thing. I almost want to apologize, but I imagine you in this room right now, and you're saying, of course you can do it. Just do what you always do. Become a clown for these people. That's your thing. To those on the outside, this may seem mean-spirited, but those who know us also know that you have an existential duty, nay, a cosmic career, to never not give me shit. Lest I fly directly into the moon, my entire body instantly and violently consumed by the very lunar rays that contribute every year to a less stable climate here on this nightmare pebble of a planet, some old-ass idiots allegedly named Earth. Gilbone, I miss you so fucking much. Thank you.
That was really rad, Dan. Thank you to everyone for speaking, for showing up. I'm trying to think what else. We got food and all that stuff. Please convene with each other, and we're going to start breaking down around 3. So we got to be out of here by 4 for some other shit to happen. So love y'all very much. Thanks for listening and being so attentive and caring about Gilbert through his life.